You are listening to The Vocal Technologist. Spoken tech for your ears.
Imagine waking up, right, and finding out that the exact formula for a multi-billion-dollar drug, let's say, something as ubiquitous as the weight loss drug Ozempic, was just stolen.
Oh, yeah. That is a terrifying thought.
Right. And the crazy part is, it wasn't stolen by some team of super hackers dropping down from the ceiling on wires, bypassing laser grids.
Right. No Matrix stuff here.
Exactly. It happened because someone, somewhere, just accidentally left a single digital master key lying around on a public website.
Mm-hmm.
And that isn't a hypothetical movie plot either. That is the exact reality of modern security right now.
It really is. It completely shatters the illusion we have had for decades. I mean, we used to think of security like building a fortress, right?
Yeah, with the walls and the moats.
Exactly. You build thick walls, you check IDs at the front gate, and you just assume everything inside those walls is safe. But when a single exposed text string can lead to the exfiltration of terabytes of clinical data, you realize those fortress walls haven't just crumbled.
They have completely vaporized.
Precisely. They're just gone.
Well, welcome to this deep dive. We have a massive, custom-tailored exploration lined up just for you today. I have been digging through a huge stack of notes from the late June 2026 TLDR information security newsletters.
And there is a lot of ground to cover this week.
There really is. Our mission today is simple, though. We are going to shortcut your path to being incredibly well-informed on this terrifying but honestly fascinating shift in the landscape.
Yeah, the landscape is changing fast.
It is. We are looking at how our attack surfaces are mutating, right? Moving away from traditional network perimeters down to unpatchable hardware and all the way out to autonomous AI agents.
And to really grasp the gravity of this, you need to understand that we are currently watching two distinct timelines violently collide.
Okay, what do you mean by two timelines?
Well, on one hand, the tech industry is failing spectacularly at basic credential management. Just basic stuff. And on the other hand, we are taking those exact same failing vulnerable credentials and we are handing them over to highly gullible artificial intelligence systems.
Okay, let's unpack this, starting with that first timeline, the complete collapse of the perimeter. Because before we even utter the phrase AI, we have to look at how traditional methods of keeping secrets safe are just failing at an unimaginably massive scale.
Oh, absolutely. The scale is staggering.
Yeah, I was reading the notes on this campaign called FortiBleed, and the scale of this is hard to even wrap my head around.
FortiBleed is practically a master class in industrial-scale exploitation. I mean, we are looking at a Russian-speaking initial access broker who basically targeted internet-facing Fortinet firewalls and VPNs.
Okay.
And the final tally was roughly 1.16 billion credential attempts.
Wow. Over a billion.
Yeah, over a billion attempts against 320,000 targets across 194 countries.
That is insane. But wait, just to clarify for everyone listening, they didn't just sit on a web portal guessing passwords a billion times, right? Because, any basic system would lock you out after, 5 failed tries.
Right. That is the crucial distinction here. They didn't do this online where they could be blocked.
So how did they do it?
They found a way to intercept the SSL VPN authentication process and extort the device configurations. And once they had those configurations, they effectively stole the cryptographic scrambles, what we call the hashes of the passwords.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so they took those hashes offline, back to their own servers.
Where there are no login limits to stop them.
Precisely. They rented a cluster of 45 high-end GPUs. And a graphics processing unit is exceptionally good at doing massive amounts of simple math simultaneously.
Right, they use them for crypto mining and stuff.
Exactly. So they just pointed this massive supercomputer at the hashes, guessing billions of combinations offline until they found the matches.
Right.
And it resulted in over 86,000 valid, fully compromised logins.
It is an absolute brute force nightmare. But then, you contrast that massive supercomputer operation with the Novo Nordisk breach.
Oh, yeah. Completely different approach.
Totally different. This one was pulled off by a group calling themselves FulcrumSec. And it wasn't a billion attempts. It was literally one leaked GitHub personal access token, a single PAT.
Yeah, the Novo Nordisk breach really highlights a different kind of failure entirely. A personal access token, or PAT, is essentially a bearer credential.
Meaning what, exactly?
It is an alphanumeric string that basically tells a server who Whoever holds this text is allowed to do these specific things. In this case, that token granted access to Novo Nordisk's internal code repositories.
And the hacker just, found it sitting out in the open?
It was exposed, yes,
Yeah.
just out there. And what makes this so devastating is the dwell time.
The time they spent inside without getting caught.
Exactly. The amount of time an attacker sits inside a network before they're discovered. With that single token, FulcrumSec sat inside Novo Nordisk undetected for roughly 2 months.
2 months? Wow.
Yeah, they quietly cloned over 1.3 terabytes of data.
Which, according to the notes, included the clinical trial records for 11,500 patients and the exact formula for Ozempic, all because Novo Nordisk reportedly refused a $25 million extortion demand.
Which is just a huge mess for them.
Oh, for sure. And speaking of extortion, the sheer chaos in the ransomware ecosystem right now is just unbelievable. I really want to bring up the Clue supply chain breach because this sounds like a total joke, but it is actually real.
It does sound like a joke, but yeah, the Clue incident exposes a complete collapse in supply chain trust.
Walk us through it.
So a hacking group named Icarus broke into Clue, which is a competitive enablement platform. They got in using a compromised legacy credential.
Okay, so a pretty standard breach so far.
Right. But unfortunately, this gave Icarus access to highly sensitive data from multiple cybersecurity firms that used Clue, firms including LastPass.
Wait, so let me get this straight. With FortiBleed, it is like a burglar jiggling every single doorknob in a city, taking photos of the locks, and then using a supercomputer in their basement to print master keys.
Yes, perfect analogy.
And with the Clue breach, a second, unnamed hacker group literally copied the stolen data from Icarus's servers and is now trying to extort the 195 victims independently.
Yep, they hacked the hackers.
It is literally a mugger getting mugged by another mugger.
That analogy is painfully accurate. There is honestly no honor among thieves, especially not in the current data extortion economy. Hackers are hacking other hackers just to double dip on the ransoms.
That is wild.
And the thing is, no sector is immune from this baseline credential failure. I mean, we just saw the betting platform Polymarket lose $3 million because a compromised third-party vendor let attackers inject a malicious script into their front end.
Oh, wow.
We also saw Tata Electronics in India suffer a leak that exposed Apple and Tesla trade secrets. It is everywhere.
So if you are listening to this and you are managing a network, what is the through line here? Why is this happening everywhere all at once?
The root cause almost always traces back to what we call OWASP credential failures. OWASP being the Open Worldwide Application Security Project, which tracks the most critical security flaws.
Right.
The lesson from these breaches isn't just, hey, use a longer password. The lesson is really about how we treat digital tokens. If you issue a GitHub pat, you have to treat it like a physical master key.
So keep it locked up.
Exactly. If it doesn't have a short expiration date, if its permissions aren't narrowly scoped to one specific task, and if you don't have alarms set up to trigger when someone suddenly clones a whole terabyte of data.
That doesn't matter how thick your firewall is.
Exactly. You have already handed the attacker the keys to the kingdom.
Man. Well, if we are already failing this badly at managing these digital master keys, what happens when we start handing those exact same keys to autonomous AI coding agents?
And that is the terrifying part.
Yeah, because that leads us right into the second timeline we are tracking today. This introduces a truly terrifying new concept in the intelligence we are seeing. It's called agent jacking.
Yeah, agent jacking completely flips how we think about malicious code execution. Let's look at a recent attack utilizing the Model Context Protocol, or MCP.
Okay.
MCP is the standard that lets AI assistants connect to your local development tools. Now, in this specific attack, hackers found a publicly exposed Sentry key.
Let's define that for a second for the listeners. Sentry is an error tracking software that developers use, right?
Correct.
But from what I read in the notes, Sentry keys, specifically their data source names, or DSNs, are historically considered safe to just leave in public front-end code because they are write-only credentials.
That is the historical assumption, yes. A write-only key means you can't use it to read a company's database or steal customer records. The only thing the key allows you to do is send a new error log to the server.
So security teams historically just ignored them.
Exactly. But attackers realized something brilliant. You can't steal data with that key, but you can post a fake error log.
Oh, okay, I see where this is going.
Right. An attacker crafts a malicious error event. And in the markdown context, fields of that error, which is the part of the log where a developer might write notes about how to fix the bug, the attacker writes a fake resolution. And buried in that fake text is an executable command, specifically an NPX command.
And NPX stands for Node Package Execute. It is a command tool that basically tells a computer, hey, go fetch this code package from the internet and run it immediately.
Exactly. So here is the trap. A human developer logs in, looks at their overwhelming backlog of errors, and says to their AI assistant, like Claude Code or Cursor, hey, go clear my Sentry backlog.
Oh, no.
Yeah. The AI agent connects via MCP. It reads that fake attacker-crafted resolution.
Yeah.
But because it lacks human intuition, it assumes this text is trusted guidance from the system.
So it just does it.
Exactly. It just runs the NPX command.
And because the AI agent is operating on the developer's local machine, it runs that malicious command using the developer's own privileges. It reaches right in and steals their AWS keys, their GitHub tokens, whatever it can grab, and just sends them directly to the hacker.
Yep. It sidesteps traditional endpoint detection, firewalls, and VPNs entirely, because every step of the chain is technically authorized.
So what does this all mean? I mean, if an AI agent has my SSH keys and reads a fake error log that says run this command, it just does it.
Pretty much.
That is not a complex Matrix-style hack. That is just our newest employee falling for a phishing email at light speed. Are we basically creating the world's most gullible interns?
That is actually a highly accurate way to frame it. The AI doesn't understand intent, right? It only understands instructions. And this exposes a massive flaw in how the industry is currently trying to defend these systems.
How so?
Well, a lot of security teams think, oh, we will just put the AI in a micro VM sandbox. You will lock it in a little virtual cage. But micro VMs are the completely wrong defense here.
Because the call is coming from inside the house?
Precisely. A micro VM is designed to stop a hostile piece of software from escaping into the host system. But a coding agent is already running as you.
Right, with all your permissions.
Exactly, with your credentials actively mounted inside the box so it can do its job. So the threat isn't the AI breaking out of jail. The threat is the AI using the legitimate access you gave it to do the wrong thing.
And it isn't just the agents, right? The platforms hosting these AIs are riddled with vulnerabilities themselves. The sources note that 7,000 Langflow servers are under active attack right now.
Yeah, Langflow is a visual framework used to build AI applications. And attackers are basically chaining together a file upload bug in Langflow with what is called an SQL-like checkpointer vulnerability in a related tool called LangGraph.
Okay, that sounds complicated.
It is a bit, but by combining these two flaws, they can run arbitrary Python code right on the servers hosting the AI.
Wow. I also saw notes on OpenClaw skills. Attackers are hiding malicious software, which are known as droppers, inside standard readme files. But the wild part is they are padding these text files with 22 megabytes of absolute junk text just to bypass security scanners.
Yeah, that is a clever trick.
But how does adding junk text hide a virus?
It exploits the physical limitations of security scanners. A security scanner running on a network has to process thousands of files a second. To maintain system performance and not cause massive internet lag, these scanners have strict file size and memory limits.
Oh, so they just get overwhelmed.
Exactly. If a file is bloated to 22 megabytes, the scanner simply times out or skips it entirely, assuming it's just a massive, harmless log file. So the malicious payload sneaks right past the checkpoint, hidden at the very bottom of the junk.
Unbelievable. I want to ask you about the meta-privacy leak, too, because even the tech giants with infinite resources are struggling with the data required to build these models securely.
Oh, the meta situation perfectly illustrates the internal risks of AI development. They had an internal AI training program called the Model Capability Initiative.
Okay.
And to train an AI to code better, you need data on how humans code. So they were capturing their own employees' keystrokes, their mouse movements, their full prompts, and even their private conversations.
But the restricted dataset leaked internally to unauthorized staff. They had to completely pause the whole program.
Because the infrastructure required to feed an AI is just so vast, securing that pipeline is proving nearly impossible. We are building systems of unprecedented power on foundations of unprecedented fragility.
It is wild. And because these AI agents are operating at machine speed, making thousands of vulnerable decisions a second, this is no longer just an IT headache for a single company, is it?
Not at all.
The blast radius is so large that entire governments are stepping in. Which brings us to the macro level, the geopolitics of frontier AI.
Yeah, the capabilities of these frontier models have really crossed a threshold where they are now considered national security assets and, honestly, potential geopolitical weapons.
Wow.
We saw this clearly with Anthropic's new Mythos model. They tested it with U.S. intelligence agencies under an initiative called Project Glasswing.
And from what the sources say, Mythos was incredibly effective. A U.S. official stated that the model quickly found vulnerabilities in classified U.S. government systems.
Yes, but the reaction to that capabilities is where it gets really complicated. The Trump administration imposed export controls and restrictions on these frontier models, citing the exact national security concerns we were discussing.
Right.
But as a direct result of those restrictions, parts of the NSA actually lost access to the Mythos model.
Okay, here is where it gets really interesting. We have international intelligence, specifically the Five Eyes network, warning businesses that devastating AI cyber attacks are, quote, months away.
Yes.
So the government restricts the models. But by restricting them, our own defenders, like the NSA, lose the tools they need to find the flaws first. It is a massive national security catch-22, isn't it?
It really is. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it highlights how AI has fundamentally altered the timeline of cybersecurity.
That's so.
Well, historically, the window between a vulnerability being discovered and it being actively exploited in the wild was measured in weeks. Human defenders had time to patch.
Right, you're at a buffer.
Exactly. But now, because AI can generate exploits instantaneously, that window has collapsed to minutes.
Yeah.
You cannot rely on a human analyst to gather context after an alert fires.
It is just too slow.
Way too slow. Defense now requires continuous machine speed context. Taking these tools away from defenders means they're basically bringing a human reaction time to an algorithmic gunfight.
And we are seeing the government pressure other companies too, right? The White House is reportedly asking OpenAI to slow roll the release of GPT 5.6, limiting it to a vetted preview because of these exact safety concerns.
Yes, the scrutiny on how security vulnerabilities might impact public perception and infrastructure is intense right now.
Which leads into a very sensitive piece of intelligence regarding U.S. infrastructure, specifically from the ODNI, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence.
Right.
Now, before we dive into this next point from the ODNI report, I want to be unequivocally clear to you listening. We are not taking a political side here.
Absolutely not.
We are not endorsing any claims, left-wing or right-wing, about elections. We are strictly and impartially reporting the text from the source material we have in front of us.
Understood. And according to the source, White House officials delayed the release of an ODNI report that documented significant security gaps in U.S. voting machines.
Okay.
The report highlighted issues like outdated software and internet connectivity that attackers could theoretically exploit.
Crucially, though, the source text explicitly states that the report cites no evidence of vote manipulation, and it does not claim any votes were actually flipped or altered.
That is correct. No evidence of that. However, the source indicates that the delay in releasing the study was driven by concerns from some officials that publishing these theoretical vulnerabilities might undermine voter confidence.
Or interact with Donald Trump's claims about the 2020 election, right?
Exactly. And the practical consequence of this delay, the intelligence notes, is that recommended security remediations for these machines remain unimplemented as the midterms approach.
Wow. And again, simply reporting the intelligence exactly as provided. But it perfectly encapsulates how intertwined cybersecurity and geopolitics have become. I mean, you can't even patch a machine without navigating political fallout.
It is a minefield.
It really is. But I do want to balance out the doom and gloom for a second, because AI is also providing some incredible defensive capabilities, right?
Oh, absolutely. The same technology that accelerates attacks is also revolutionizing defense.
Yes.
GitHub, for example, just announced they used context-aware large language models to reduce their secret scanning false positives by over 75%.
That is a massive operational win. I mean, if a scanner flags a million things a day, a human just ignores it.
Right. Alert fatigue.
Exactly. But the LLM actually reasons about the context. It looks at a string of text and asks, is this random test data? Or is this value actually flowing into an API request or an authentication header? It filters out the noise.
It is a game changer. And Cloudflare just open-sourced an AI security audit skill that acts like an autonomous red team, reporting only genuinely exploitable findings.
So we've talked about the cloud, we've talked about AI agents and geopolitical software battles, but there is a tether we just can't escape. You can deploy all the LLM-powered network defense in the world, but you're still fundamentally relying on physical hardware.
Yes.
And software patches cannot fix silicon.
Hardware bugs are forever, and we have a perfect, newly disclosed example of this. It is an Apple exploit dubbed Usblutter 8.
Oh man, I need you to break down the mechanics of this one for me because it just blows my mind. This is an exploit against the boot ROM of Apple's A12 and A13 chips. So we are talking about devices ranging from the iPhone XS through the iPhone 11.
Right.
What actually happens when this exploit is triggered?
So it exploits a flaw deep in the device's USB controller. During the device's startup process, an attacker sends a sequence of unusually small USB data packets.
Okay, just sending weird packets over a cable.
Exactly, and the system just isn't designed to handle packets of that specific tiny size during boot. This unexpected sequence literally confuses the logic gate, causing an internal hardware pointer to walk backward through the device's memory.
Walk backward. Wow.
Yeah. This enables out-of-bounds writes, effectively giving the attacker total control over the startup sequence.
And the reason this is so catastrophic is because this flaw sits in the mask ROM. Now, for those who aren't hardware engineers, what exactly does that mean?
The mask ROM is the foundational read-only memory of the device. It is physically baked into the silicon circuitry of the chip at the factory during manufacturing.
So it is physical, not digital.
Right. It's not software. It is a physical arrangement of microscopic wires and transistors. But because of that, no downloadable software update from Apple can ever rewrite it.
It cannot be patched. Those phones are vulnerable for life.
For life.
It is like building an impregnable, futuristic digital fortress, only to realize the concrete foundation never actually dried.
That is the terrifying reality of hardware in a software world. Physical proximity and hardware architecture remain the ultimate, unupdatable vulnerabilities.
Which is wild to think about.
And we saw another physical proximity attack disclosed this week, actually, with Apple's Beat Studio Buds.
Oh, right. CVE 225-201.
Yep. This one requires an attacker to be within Bluetooth range. They can exploit an authentication flaw to literally open a one-way audio stream and listen right through the microphone of an unpaired earbud.
Even if it isn't paired to anything.
The only caveat is that the earbud must be actively seeking a pairing request.
Okay.
So it is a targeted surveillance risk rather than a mass exploitation event, but it proves the point. The physical layer is the final anchor.
It always comes back to the physical.
It does. In fact, we are seeing the cybersecurity industry desperately try to tie digital security back to undeniable physical states just to stop these software breaches.
Yeah, that perfectly explains VaultSort v4. It is a newly updated file encryption tool for macOS, but instead of just using a typed password, it makes encryption hardware-bound.
Right.
It uses your physical Touch ID as a first-class encryption key,
Yeah.
running your fingerprint data directly through the Mac's secure enclave, which is a dedicated, isolated chip.
Exactly.
We are so terrified of our digital credentials being stolen by AI agents that we are forcing the encryption process to demand a physical human finger be present on the machine.
We really have come full circle. As the software layer becomes infinitely shifting, vulnerable and autonomous, the only anchor of trust left in the digital world is physical presence and unalterable hardware architecture.
Well, we have covered an immense amount of ground today. We have journeyed from Russian credential cracking farms using GPUs to brute force firewalls to the sheer chaos of supply chain extortion where hackers are robbing other hackers.
It has been quite a ride.
It really has. We have explored how handing those stolen master key credentials to gullible AI agents is creating an invisible agent jacking crisis. And we have seen how even the most advanced machine-speed cyber defenses are completely useless if an attacker can just send tiny USB packets to an unpatchable Apple chip.
The core takeaway from all of this intelligence is honestly a paradox. As our technology gets smarter, faster, and more autonomous, the basic, unglamorous principles of zero trust and identity management become more important, not less.
Absolutely. The perimeter is gone, but the keys still matter.
They matter more than ever. And I do want to leave you with one final thought to ponder. Based on everything we have unpacked today.
What's that?
Well, if our AI agents are currently so vulnerable, specifically because they borrow our human credentials and operate with our human privileges, how long until we are forced to give AI models their own distinct, legal digital identities?
Oh, wow.
Will the next generation of cybersecurity require us to issue digital passports to algorithms just so we can legally and technically fire them when they mess up?
That is a wild thought to leave on. The castle walls are gone, and now every brick has a mind of its own. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Stay insanely curious out there.
Spoken Tech for your ears.